Howdy folks, welcome to another beautiful day out here in West Vancouver. So what did I learn driving through the border to the US from Canada on Easter Friday? Well, the first thing I learned is that some people suck and that as humanity we have a little bit of a conundrum on our hands. But in any case, we'll get to that at the end of the video. The first thing, let's go through, some of the standard things I learned. So, driving through to the US on Easter Friday, the first thing I learned is do not do that. That is not a good idea. It's not a good idea to go through the border by vehicle on any holiday, according to the people there. They say that it is always that busy, and we sat in the queue for 4.5 hours before we actually got to the front and, got processed. The second thing I learned is if you really have to drive through the border on a public holiday or like Easter weekend or something like that, go very early, because if you go too late, yes, then, we hit the border at 10 o'clock. That's when we arrived, and we just got the tail end of the traffic. We hit the traffic about 1.4 kilometers away from the border. So if we were there an hour earlier, I think we would have made it through quicker. If we were there like 4 hours later, 5 hours later, I think we would have made it through quicker. It was just a bad time. When we crossed back at about 5 p.m., or 4:30, 5 o'clock, the queue was already quite a lot less. So either go very early or then much later in the day. The next thing I learned is your visa in your passport doesn't mean you can just drive into the US. I've never had this before. When I fly into the US, they check my passport, they stamp it, and off they go. When we drove through the border, they were like, okay, first you got to go in there and get an I-94 form. So basically you got to go in there, and it's like at the airport when they ask you questions, and where are you going, why are you doing that, where have you been, that kind of thing. So for the I-94, you have to go into the offices of the US. They actually ask you all of these questions, and then they issue a 6-month kind of, I-94, which is kind of a travel permit. So it allows you for 6 months to go in and out as you please. As you get to the border, you just show your passport with your visa and you can go. But without the I-94, your visa is not good enough. What did the guy say? Your visa gets you to me, but you need the I-94 to actually enter. So that was it. I never heard about an I-94 before, but it was actually not a serious process. We went in, a whole lot of people had the orange tickets. So you park your car, you go in, they ask you a couple of questions, you pay them $6 per I-94, and you're good to go for 6 months. So the I-94 is definitely a thing. The next thing I learned is that the US is very pedantic. It's like, Belinda has some photos. I'll see if I can get one and put it in the video here. When you drive up to the border, there's literally, I think there's 6 or 8 cameras, and some of them look like they look like they're spectrometers that's going to analyze the makeup of your vehicle or something on the side. So when you pull up here, you've got all these cameras above, below, everywhere, just looking at your car, which was like, I was like, whoa, you ain't sneaking anything in here. As opposed to Canada, when you come in on the other side, there's like 2 cameras. Canadians are obviously a lot more trustworthy or trusting of the Americans than the Americans are of the Canadians. So those are the important things that I learned at the border. For the rest, it was actually quite simple. There's a bunch of shops. There's a duty-free shop that you can stop. We had Jojo's chicken, which was really good, because luckily there was a Jojo's chicken on the side. So everybody's walking to the bathrooms at this one little shopping center, and everybody's picking up food from Jojo's chicken. Was it Jojo's? Yeah, I think so. Anyway, sorry. Really good chicken, actually. So that was all cool. Now let's get to the part of why I say people suck. And it's something we were thinking about, It's funny, you arrive there and let's be honest, the organization is not that great. So you arrive there, it's a 2-lane road that runs up to, from, 1.5 kilometers away. It's a 2-lane road that goes to the border. The left lane is for normal people passing through, The right lane is for trucks and people with Nexus. So Nexus is where you have a little card or something and you can just zip through. You don't have to stop and talk to anybody. I assume. I haven't looked up Nexus, but that's what I understand. It's a fast, accelerated way because you go in and out often, and that's it. So you've got these 2 lanes. Now, there's a 1.4 kilometer queue in the lane, in the left lane, for the cars going to the border, all the normal people. And you know what a lot of people do? They zip down the left side all the way to the front. There's a traffic light, I guess probably about, I don't know, 800, 900 meters further, about halfway to the other side. There's a traffic light. So what people do is they zip down this lane all the way, and then there by the traffic light, they sneak in front of everybody and they kick in, you know. And it's like, I mean, that's just so sucky. Everybody's sitting in the same queue, waiting for the same thing. Why would you do that? Why would you skip past? Are you that much more important than everybody else that you have to go and push in front? And you know what? There's actually quite a lot of people that did that. So what happens is that first like 800-900 meters running up to that traffic light, the poor guys that sit in the queue, it literally takes them double or triple as long to get to the front of that queue as it would have if the queue just normally moved with all of the people cruising in there. But that's not all, you know. And it's amazing how people would just, I mean, brazenly do that. They drive past, to the front, put on their flicker and just push in. And, you know, obviously some people are getting a little bit aggravated about it. If you're sitting in a queue for like 2-3 hours just to get to the traffic light, and some guy comes and pushes in front of you, so the people on this side are trying to like close the gaps, but you know, these guys just don't care. They just go in the front and there you go. And they do it at the traffic light, because at the traffic light, the people that follow the rules and sit in the queue, they tend to also be the people that stop at the traffic light when it's red. And the guys that are sneaking, they generally don't care, so they would go up to the traffic light and then they would pop over across the red light and push into in front, because it's also 2 lanes. From that traffic light, it's actually 2 lanes running all the way to the border. So the 1 lane is supposed to run into 2 there, but these guys come and they sneak around. But that's not all. There is another way to the border. That traffic light connects to a road on the right, coming from the right from the White Rock side. So what a lot of people do also is, instead of sitting in the queue, maybe they're not as brazen. They don't want to like pop past everybody here in plain sight and basically cut everybody else off. So what they do is they drive around with the back roads, and then they come out from that traffic light feeding into the traffic over there, and then they sneak in front from that side. But that's not all. There's another traffic light a little bit further, and people do it there as well. So as you get closer to the border, the traffic starts moving faster, because you've got all of these people squeezing in. And I mean, they know damn well what they're doing. They know damn well that they are basically stealing time from everybody else. I'm pretty sure if everybody went in one queue and everybody stuck to the rules and everybody drove, you know, along, everybody could have gotten through there in like 2 hours or 2.5 hours. But now some people sit there for 4.5 hours because they're good and they follow the rules, and other people sit there, go through in less than an hour because they sneak around and they sneak in the front. And that's what I'm saying. It's like, you know, we live in the world, we want to believe that everybody's good. And we live in this world where we want everybody to be equal and treated the same. And, you know, we want to see the good in people. But there are just some people that are, you know, they're just not. And does it make you a bad person if you sneak around and cut everybody else? Well, I think it does. I really do. Because, you know, it's not that you're literally stealing time from the law-abiding people that follow the rules. And that's the sad thing, and that's why I'm saying humanity is doomed, because the guy that doesn't care, that's a bit of a butthole, he's the guy that gets ahead. He's the guy that gets through the border in an hour or an hour and a half. And the people that are good, that follow the rules and that want to, you know, stick to the rules and treat everybody the same and be fair, they get through the border in 4.5 hours because that other asshole, that other dude, stole an hour and a half from them by sneaking around, him and his mates, or him and the people that do it like he does. And there's a lot of them. Right before the border, there's another little road coming in from the left. So you could actually drive around the back and drive along the border and come in on this other little road, which is literally, I think, about 100 meters away from the border. People do that too. They come around, they go all the way around, and then they come and stand there, and then they squeeze in, they push in. Luckily for them, it's a little bit harder because they're coming from the left, so they have to cross the traffic. I don't know. They have to cross the traffic, the incoming traffic. So you've got all the trucks and everything coming into Canada on this highway, and they have to cross that and then push into this traffic here. And I tell you what, by the time we got there, I mean, most of us have been sitting in that traffic for 4+ hours, 4.5, 5 hours. So by the time it got there, a lot of people wouldn't give them space. So I mean, this one guy in the Tesla, he pushed across the road and tried to push in, and then people just closed up the gap. So now he's standing across the highway, across the incoming traffic with his Tesla, blocking one of the lanes, and all the trucks and everything's flying past. Well, not flying, it's right there by the border, so they're driving past. But, and I'm sitting there and I'm looking at this and I'm like, man, I actually feel sorry for you, because what you're doing now is you're causing a problem. And I mean, if I was sitting there sideways across oncoming traffic, stuck there, I mean, that's not cool. I would feel really bad. But then again, he should feel really bad because he knowingly did that. He didn't drive that way around because it's the scenic route, or because Google took him that way around, or because it was an accident. He drove that way around because he saw the traffic and he was like, hey, I'm just going to skip the traffic, skip ahead of all of these normal people, and I'm just going to go squeeze in the front. So, does he deserve sitting there? Yes. Is it good that he sat there? I see the guy that was in front at the time. So there was a guy with a big truck, and he cut him off first. And then the guy was opening the window from his Tesla, and he was like, hey, can you let me in? And the guy was first telling him to bugger off, but then, you know, he's becoming a hazard for the oncoming traffic. So eventually the guy with the truck just reversed a little, gave him a little gap so he can get into the traffic. But I do tell you one thing that happened there. The other cars that were sitting behind that Tesla waiting for their gap, they waited a lot longer because they were like, whoa, this is getting serious. Anyway, so that was it. We drove to the US quickly to go and pick up our mail. In a moment of madness yesterday, I said to Belinda, well, you're not working tomorrow, so let's quickly pop down to the US. I mean, if we leave here by 9, it's an hour's drive to the Mailboxes International. We pick up the stuff, we'll be back by noon, have lunch, and then carry on. We arrived back at like 5:30 in the afternoon. So, lesson learned, don't drive to the US on a holiday. All right, folks, you all must have an absolutely wonderful day. Cheers.